When John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson's face were on every post office wall in America, surviving as public enemy number one was kind of difficult because your face was on every wall. So what they had to do is figure out how to make that someone else's faces. So what they did was destroy their own body before J. Edgar Hoover's FBI could do it for them. The 1930s public enemy era wasn't a game of hide and seek. It was a brutal test of human endurance where staying alive required back alley mutilations and field medicine that defies belief. The stakes became life or death after the bloody 1933 Kansas City massacre. That shootout shocked the nation and gave Hoover the ultimate federal mandate to hunt down the underworld. From that moment on, if you're running, your body was the front line. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mr. V and this is the Hidden Lens. Well, months before the FBI agent, Alvin Karpis, would close the dragnet outside of Chicago's Biograph Theater on July the 22nd, 1934, John Dillinger understood that escaping the law meant changing the one thing they used to track you, your identity. He paid a disgraced, narcotics dealing former physician named Dr. Wilhelm Loeser. He paid him $5,000 to physically redesign his face inside of a hidden safe house. Loeser sended off 3 of Dillinger's moles and aggressively tightened the skin under his cheekbone. That doesn't get done without some cutting. Then he attempted to fill the cleft in his chin with hot paraffin wax. During the surgery, Loeser accidentally gave Dillinger an overdose of ether, that anesthetic stuff, causing the skin to turn blue and nearly killing him on the operating table before they can get his tongue, which had fallen back into his throat, out of his throat. The very next morning, Dillinger hadn't had enough, so he went further to beat the system. He had Loeser pour raw acid and scrape his fingertips, attempting to permanently erase his fingerprints. Though the process caused immense pain and deeply scarred the tissue, it failed to destroy the deep-set dermal ridges. When the FBI later took his prints after he was dead, the outer ridges patterns were still easily readable. How do you like that? I wouldn't. Dillinger's inner circle, though, they understood this grim survival math way too well, especially after their narrow escape from the bloody FBI ambush at the Little Bohemia Lodge. John, they call him Red, Hamilton, who served as Dillinger's, unluckiest lieutenant, was shot in the back during a chaotic getaway. Safe houses refused to take a bleeding, high-profile fugitive, so Hamilton spent his final days trapped in a back room, slowly rotting from gangrene, while his crew watched him slip away. When Hamilton finally died, Dillinger faced a brutal logistical reality. Leaving the body intact meant giving Hoover's men a definite tracking lead. Before a tip from Anna Sage would eventually end Dillinger's own run, he had to erase his friend. Dillinger and his associates drove the corpse to a gravel pit. They used a hacksaw to chop off Hamilton's right hand, the one that was missing 2 fingers from a childhood accident that earned him the nickname Three Finger Jack. Well, they did that to throw off the federal investigators, not just because they wanted to use a hacksaw. Then they poured 10 cans of raw, flesh-eating lye over his face and chest before burying him in the rapidly dissolving remains. Survival didn't stop at your own skin, it meant erasing your friends too. Further south, Ma Barker's boys and the rest of the Barker Karpis gang were taking the exact same physical gamble. Alvin, creepy they call him, Karpis paid a notorious underworld surgeon named Dr. Joseph Morin to permanently remove his fingerprints. Unlike Loeser's acid method, Morin had a scalpel physically slicing the skin on the ridges of the tips of Karpis's hand, or his fingers. Well, it didn't hurt, although it does say the agony was immense, but the dude didn't have enough brain cells. Maybe they didn't connect to the pain cells, right? Well, anyway, it was botched. And the botched healing process left Karpis with smooth, sensitive scar tissue that made everyday tasks painful. Go figure. What the hell? While contemporary outlaws like Machine Gun Kelly relied on clever disguises and devastating firepower of a Thompson machine gun to stay ahead of the law, the Karpis' crew relied on raw mutilation. Morin's medical failures eventually drove the game to absolute paranoia. Believing the doctor knew too much and was becoming a liability, that's what happens, right? They executed him and dumped his body into the Lake Michigan. There you go, buddy. You should have cut a different vein. But fixing a face or a finger was nothing compared to the daily physical trauma endured by ours truly, Bonnie and Clyde, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. For them, survival meant keeping a broken squad moving at all cost. In June 1933, Clyde rode their stolen V8, their Ford V8, into a river basin in the Texas Panhandle. That was the exact vehicle model that he infamously praised in a personal letter to Henry Ford for its unmatched speed and getaway power, just that he can't drive it. The car battery cracked open, pinning Bonnie underneath and bathing her right leg in raw acid, not on purpose like the fingerprints. The chemical burn was so severe that it ate down to the muscle, causing her leg to go permanently curl inward, that's inward for everybody else, and turning her toes into a claw. She could never walk on her own again. To keep her alive and escape police search parties, Clyde carried her in his arms for 11 straight months into motels and across state lines. When they had to stand in public to blend in, Bonnie would use sheer willpower to lean hard against car doors or fences or people, so locals wouldn't realize she was a crippled fugitive. Clyde's own survival required extreme measure. Long before the crash, now, to escape the brutal, lethal field work and the conditions at Eastham prison farm, well, he used an axe to chop off 2 of his toes on his left foot. It worked to get him off the fields, but it left him with a permanent limp. Agonizing. For the rest of his life, Clyde drove getaway cars strictly in his socks because wearing shoes hurt too much. And he couldn't really react very well to the police ambushes when he's in the car. While Dillinger was altering his face and Clyde was driving in his socks, Pretty Boy Floyd, can't leave him out, was running his own desperate escape across the Midwest, pushing his body to the absolute limit. But even Floyd's endurance couldn't match the Barrow gang's survival instinct, which reached a terrifying peak during a police siege at a Missouri tourist court. Clyde's older brother, Buck Barrow, took a bullet directly through the noggin. The round entered his left temple and exploded out the right side of his noggin. By all medical logic, he should have popped right there, but instead his wife Blanche bandaged his open head and loaded him into the car. I think I need her to be my doctor, because that was a pretty good deal, because he didn't right there. They kept driving. 5 days later, while hiding out in the Iowa Park, a posse cornered them again, but was completely incapacitated from severe blood loss and infection. But the rest of the crew actively traded gunfire with the police to buy time. When doctors finally captured Buck, they noted they had never seen a human being survive that long with that level of a catastrophic brain trauma. He kept himself alive for nearly a week before finally succumbing to his wounds and a severe case of pneumonia in a hospital bed. Was it the brain or the pneumonia that got him? I don't think he thought about that very well. And then there's Lester Gillis. The papers called him Babyface Nelson. And he took the concept of fighting to survive to his absolute limit. During a furious road chase outside Barrington, Illinois on November 27, 1934, Nelson went toe-to-toe with FBI inspectors Herman Hollis and Samuel Cowley. Nelson was shot repeatedly by a devastating blast of federal buckshot and rifle rounds, but refused to stop firing his weapon. He killed both those federal agents in a hail of gunfire, but his own lower body was completely shredded. The subsequent coroner reported 9 separate entry wounds across his torso. It was a total of like 17, counting the one that went through his pancreas and his liver that was dealt by Mr. Cowley. Yet Nelson didn't fall at that time. Somehow he climbed back in. Well, they stole the car from the 2 people that they just killed, Then John Paul Chase and Helen drove him all the way to a safe house in Willamette, Illinois. Every single drop of his remaining life force went to getting his family to safety before he finally bled out on the bedroom floor somewhere hours later. Even after his death, his crew's survival protocols remained cold and calculated. To delay the Bureau from identifying his body and tracking the rest of the safe house network, Helen stripped his corpse, which they had to do actually, to help with the wounds, but he was naked and dumped him in a ditch, taking his clothes to burn the evidence. That's the raw, terrifying reality of the 1930s underground. They didn't just run from the law, they mutilated and tortured their own broken bodies to keep moving because stopping meant a date with the electric chair. The history books remember the fast cars and the Tommy guns, but the real story was written in blood and acid at the absolute limit of what a human body could endure to stay free for one more day. If you like this video, go ahead and check that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next episode of The Hidden Lens.